Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are diving headfirst into an absolutely epic 300-year saga. We're talking about a medieval Indian superpower, a civilization that essentially rose right out of the ashes of fractured kingdoms to become one of the wealthiest, most cosmopolitan empires in the entire pre-modern world. We are looking at the spectacular rise and the incredibly catastrophic fall of the Vijayanagara Empire.
But before we really get into the history here, I want you to just think about this for a second. How does a city as magnificent as Rome become a complete wasteland in just a matter of months? I mean, it sounds like some sort of apocalyptic fiction, right? But this is actually the central historical mystery of Vijayanagara. How on earth did an empire of such unimaginable scale and military might just vanish almost overnight? Well, to understand the fall, we first have to see just how high they climbed.
Just listen to this 15th century eyewitness testimony from a Persian ambassador named Abdur Razak. He visited the capital city Hampi in 1443, and this is what he had to say. The pupil of the eye has never seen a place like it. I mean, the sheer scale, the bustling bazaars, the massive stone architecture, it completely blew the minds of foreign travelers. But to really appreciate this glittering megacity, let's rewind a bit to the chaotic world that gave birth to it.
Section 1. Chaos in the Deccan. The catalyst. Right. So, to understand how Vijayanagara even started, we have to look at the massive crisis of the 14th century. The old equilibrium of the Deccan Plateau had just been totally shattered. Basically, throughout the 13th century, you had regional Hindu dynasties ruling the south. But then, in came the Delhi Sultanate. Their devastating northern campaigns extracted immense tribute and just fatally weakened these older kingdoms. The Deccan was left terribly exposed to predatory raiding. And out of this massive power vacuum, the stage was perfectly set for a new savior state to emerge.
Moving on to Section 2, Rise of the City, the Ascent.
So, picture it. It's 1336, there's chronic instability everywhere, and two brothers named Harihara and Bukaraya decide to seize the moment. They establish an independent kingdom up on the highly defensible granite hills of the Tungabhadra River, founding what became the Sangama dynasty. And over the next 3 centuries, you'd actually see 4 successive dynasties rule this empire. The Sangama consolidated all the territory, the Sallava managed to hold it together during a major crisis, the Tolava brought it to its absolute, glittering peak, and the Afaravidu, well, they ended up overseeing its tragic twilight.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Golden Age, the Zenith.
Let's fast forward to the early 16th century. This was an era completely dominated by the legendary Emperor Krishnadevaraya. Check out the perspective of Domingo Paes here. He was a Portuguese horse trader who visited around 1520, and he literally compares Hampi to Rome itself. Under Krishnadevaraya, the empire was the absolute unchallenged hegemon of the peninsula. We're talking sprawling diamond markets and this incredible hydraulic engineering system that pumped fresh water straight into the ermine core.
And the sheer scale of the place is just staggering. 500,000 people, up to 500,000. That's the upper estimate modern historians give for the capital's population at its absolute height. It wasn't just a fortress, it was this bustling, cosmopolitan economic powerhouse deeply tied to Indian Ocean trade. They were exporting textiles and spices all over and bringing in massive amounts of luxury goods.
All right, Section 4, the fatal flaws, cracks in the foundation.
So here is the great historical irony of this whole story. The very systems that allowed Vijayanagara to expand so rapidly, they were actually ticking time bombs. Take the Nayankara system, for example. Instead of having a strict centralized bureaucracy, power was totally delegated. Commanders known as Nayakas were granted these massive tracts of land in exchange for maintaining troops and horses, which, is absolutely brilliant for rapid mobilization, but it's fatally decentralized. Because if central authority ever faltered, those powerful regional lords could just walk away.
And then there was their glaring military vulnerability. Vijayanagara could field hundreds of thousands of infantry in these massive, terrifying war elephants, right? But their cavalry was a massive Achilles heel. They had no indigenous horse breeding tradition whatsoever, none. So they were entirely reliant on maritime trade to import Arabian and Persian horses. Meanwhile, look at their northern rivals, the Deccan Sultanates. They had access to highly advanced Turco-Persian cavalry and Central Asian horse bloodlines. Vijayanagara's most vital military arm was completely hostage to really fragile supply chains.
So, to quickly summarize these fatal flaws, you've got this decentralized power structure just waiting for a weak ruler, and a chronic military vulnerability when it comes to cavalry. But the final trigger? That was a man named Rama Raya.
As the de facto regent, he actually brilliantly played the 5 neighboring Deccan sultanates against each other for decades. But eventually, his diplomacy got so aggressive and humiliating that his hubris accomplished the seemingly impossible. He literally gave his divided, mutually hostile Muslim neighbors a reason to unite against him.
Section 5. The catastrophic collapse. The fall.
And that unprecedented unity brings us to January 1565. This is a sequence of events that quite literally killed a superpower in a single afternoon. Step 1. 4 of those northern Deccan sultanates form an alliance nobody saw coming. Step 2. Their combined armies meet Vijayanagara's massive forces at the Battle of Talikota. Step 3, and this is the massive turning point, 2 Muslim commanders in the Vijayanagara army, the Gilani brothers, defect at a critical juncture. Step 4, the elderly regent Ramaraya is captured on the battlefield and immediately beheaded, his head hoisted up on a lance. Step 5, the sheer psychological shock of that moment completely shatters the Vijayanagara army, turning the whole battle into a catastrophic, uncontrolled rout.
Now, a military defeat doesn't always have to mean the end of an empire. But in this case, the surviving royal court just packed up and fled, leaving their magnificent capital completely undefended. For months, the victorious armies systematically sacked Hampi. They desecrated the temples, smashed the monuments, and completely scattered the population. This heartbreaking quote from Venetian merchant Cesare Federici really says it all. It lieth like a waste wilderness, and no man dwelleth therein. A thriving megacity of 500,000 people was turned into a ghost town almost overnight.
Finally, Section 6, Legacy in Stone, the Aftermath.
So, what happened next? Well, the political empire was essentially dead, its land slowly swallowed up by the sultanates and, eventually, European trading companies. But Vijayanagara didn't vanish entirely from history. It transitioned into a permanent legacy of stone. The empire's brilliant architectural innovations literally defined the visual identity of South India forever. If you visit any major South Indian temple complex today and you see those incredibly soaring, elaborately sculpted gateway towers called gopurams, that is the unmistakable, surviving genius of the Vijayanagara style.
Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. An entire civilization that took 2 centuries to build, one that commanded wealth most people couldn't even imagine, was essentially broken beyond repair in a single afternoon. It really forces us to ask, if an empire this vast, this rich, can be wiped out so swiftly, how resilient are the civilizations we're building today? The boulder-strewn ruins of Hampi stand today as a silent, powerful reminder of both the incredible heights of human ambition and the profound fragility of our achievements. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.